Yo guys, well basically I'm just reading off from Denzel's script. So this is Georgina, not your usual co-host. I'm just your unusual co-host. Let me say that first. I'm just gonna read this script from Denzel's script since he's MIA and Black as well. Both of them are MIA these days. So it says, it's your co-host and the formidable guy you can rely to bring you some interesting discussions on the Strip in the Dipping podcast. And he goes on like this. Nyasha from Quick Stop. Well, basically, I'm reading this because once the script is there, you will be understanding why I exactly chose this. So, back to the script. Nyasha from Quick Stop once said, I have, which is Denzel, not me, one of the smoothest voices in the game. But he said there was another exemplary individual with a voice that melt butter. Okay, melting butter. He's a renowned name in the YouTube F1 content creators field, and my Lithuanian brother. Well, it's not me. Again, it's Denzel's script. So, from another mother, it's the one and only ALDAS. How was that? Was I actually doing some sort of a good thing from Denzel's script, ALDAS?
I thought that was brilliant. I mean, what an intro, first of all. Uh, no, that was brilliant. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I mean, yeah, big props straight away in terms of the voice that melts butter. So I like that. I like that. But to be fair to Nyasha, he also has a great voice as well. So yeah, big up Nyasha as well. But yeah, thanks for that intro.
Well, I think all these guys that we have on these pods, they all have these melting butter voices. They're these smooth talkers, just like AMG Dance is saying, the smooth talker, modern day Morgan Freeman.
Oh, that's too, but that's a very high bar right there. That's a very high bar. I'll take it though. Being compared to Morgan Freeman, I'll take that.
All right. So the first question, is that they want to actually know about the earliest memories of your motorsport, F1 memories growing up, and how did your successful YouTube journey begin?
Do you know what? Even I'm asking myself that question, to be brutally honest, how it all began. But do you know what? I
How
think the
did you
earliest.
actually begin? I mean, this is like the first question even I had in my mind. Like, how did it start? What's the origin of this whole thing?
So even just Formula One in general, it definitely came from a show called Top Gear, which was
Oh
super
yeah,
big
okay.
back in the day. I mean, that was yeah. I remember watching so many episodes, all of the reruns, and I remember seeing. And it's quite interesting the way it happened. I remember seeing a Formula One car on Top Gear for the first time, and it was the Renault R25, Fernando Alonso's car from like 2005, and just something
Ooh.
like clicked straight away. And it's weird because looking back, that's my favorite livery, that's my favorite car all time, and I think that's why, because it goes all the way back to that very first memory of Formula One, and that's kind of like where I kind of found out about Formula One, and then from there it was just again mostly through Top Gear. First of all, just kind of watching all of the segments that they had with the Formula One cars, and then it was only in 2012 when I first kind of started watching F1, which is it seems really strange because a lot of people have been watching for way longer. Obviously, some people haven't been watching for as long, but yeah, 2012 was the very first season where I thought, right, I'm gonna start watching it from the very first race, Australia. Never gonna forget that race. Actually, Lewis Hamilton on pole, Jenson Button jumping him at the beginning, and then winning the race. I think it was a McLaren 1-2, and yeah, kind of, and literally, I have not missed a single race since then. So it's kind of a madness. And in terms of the whole in terms of the whole YouTube thing, it just kind of came from the fact that there wasn't too many people that I knew that were into Formula One. So I thought, yeah, let's just talk. Why not talk on the internet about Formula One? And then it kind of spiraled from there. To be fair, and it's kind of I think a lot of people have kind of the same journey in terms of even like even like this podcast, for example, just speaking to other fans online. Maybe we don't know as many people close to us that are in Formula One, but through the internet you can meet so many people that are in Formula One. And now obviously that is absolutely exploded. It's just kind of a snowball effect. There's even more people that want to watch YouTube. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. The early memories of Formula One, all the way back to Top Gear, and then just wanting to kind of put my opinion out there on the internet, and somehow, for some reason, people wanted to listen, which is kind of a madness. So, yeah.
But what were you like growing up? What were you thinking of doing? Actually, like this is like the child question that we should have. Like when you're schooling, you ask kids, "Oh, whom do you want to be?" or some sort of a dream you have, and this and that. But we actually rarely we end up with that dream. So there's that. But did you have some sort of a dream sort of thing that, oh, I'm going to be like this, I'm going to be like that when you were growing up, but that changed totally different, taking a different path. So what were the dreams that you had?
I mean, I can't lie. I mean, going all the way back to when I was a kid, it was always Formula One driver. That's what it was from the very
Yeah.
beginning.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
it just
you've come almost closer.
yeah, exactly. I'm kind of there. I'm right on the cusp. I'm about to break it into Formula One, but no. To be fair, yeah, going all the way back, growing up, it was always Formula One drive. I always wanted to race, but obviously didn't quite work out in terms of like obviously when you go through school, that kind of wasn't an option. I'm afraid. I ended up actually going into science, but then once I finished university, it's I had a kind of a choice in terms of what I wanted to do with my life. So decided to give Formula One a go, and it was interesting. It was kind of because it was always my hobby growing up, racing, Formula One. So I thought I'd give, YouTube a go for a year, and it kind of worked out, and I haven't really looked back since because I mean, it's the hobby that I've had, racing, Formula One, cars. It's something I've loved ever since I was a kid, and then kind of to still be doing it is just, is amazing. So it's been a weird development, but I'm still, it's weird. It still feels so new, but I'm very lucky to be doing it. So to do something that you're really passionate about, it's super difficult for a lot of people. There's, a lot of people that have hobbies in different things, but it's not always easy to find a job in that hobby. That's the thing. But yeah, I've been lucky enough to kind of talk about Formula One, and that'd be my job. So yeah, but going back, it had to be a Formula One driver. When you start watching F1, you're like, I want to be there. So yeah, it didn't quite work out, but I've got close. I've got close enough for me.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, I want to be that driver. I want to fast drive. I want to drive the car very fast and be this and be that. But yeah, I'm rooting for you, man. I mean, close enough, but just like you said, it's not every single person's cup of tea to get the passion and the hobby and all together as a profession. But you got it. Like you really got it, and that's mind blowing.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's still kind of is a bit of a pinch me moment because even when the YouTube channel wasn't doing as well and I was only just beginning, and obviously you have to, it isn't just obviously all ups, like you have to go through the ups and downs, and the channel at the beginning, I remember my first video or something like that did I think it got like 12 views in like a month, and I always remember that actually. And there's been a lot of ups and downs along the way, but it's again, to do what you like it's a really weird feeling because it doesn't really feel like work. So it's yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do understand that feeling, so
That's
I can
awesome.
relate to
Yeah.
that part. All right, so the second question that Denzel has for you is this week. Well, it was supposed to be last week, but still. So this whole week, the Twitter timeline was in a frenzy because, in light of the new cost cap financial regulations that were brought in to create of a fairer playing field amongst the teams when it comes to spending, two teams have allegedly broke the budget and subsequently have not been given a certificate to demonstrate that they complied with the regulations. So he has cut down the question into three parts. A, that I won't be mixing this whole thing off. So, A, what have you made about Toto Wolf's response in relation to the sacrifices Mercedes and similar teams have made in comparison to Christian Horner, who's been defensive about the alleged breach? And B, how damaging is it for the FIA's reputation that's already been sunk into quicksand with its failure here to govern and police its own policies? And C, if Red Bull are found to be guilty, what should be the penalty for the breach? And do you believe this could have leave a further undesired mark on the sport commercially from Liberty Media's perspective?
That is a meaty question, multiple parts, A, B, C, right? I mean, we got to go all the way again. Obviously, we were supposed to be recording
It's
this.
like a ALL exam question.
Yeah, literally, it's like question one, but there's like A, B, and C, and it kind of like leads on from the next one. Going all the way at the beginning, obviously, again, yeah, we were supposed to be doing this last week, but obviously, for the people that don't know, I had to cancel on the day because I was just feeling too ill. I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. But yeah, luckily we've got
No,
to
we are totally
reorganize
cool
it.
with that. We needed this guy's voice, and I understand the reason now. It's melting butter for God's sake.
Yeah, the voice was gone. The voice was gone. But anyway, right, all the way at the beginning, in terms of the Toto Wolf side, obviously all teams in some form had to, especially the top teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull, they had to cut down in some way, and they had to have some really difficult conversations in terms of some of their employees. So that's I could not imagine, that could not be my job. There's just no way. I could not be that guy that, you know, looks at people's jobs and said, yeah, they unfortunately have to go because we need to comply with the cost cap, which I think is $145 million dollars for the first year.
Yeah.
And obviously it shows the sacrifices. I mean, Ferrari, for example, they were quite lucky in the sense that they did have to drop some of their staff, but they actually went over to Haas, because as Ferrari had to downsize, Haas actually had the opportunity during the budget cap in 2020 to upsize. So Haas got a brand new facility in Maranello as well. And so the people from Ferrari that would have lost their jobs actually went to Haas. So that was quite a good, way that Ferrari did it with Haas. But some people did have to go, especially from the top teams, because the truth is, even though the budget cap is 145 million, only 3 teams really are even operating at the budget cap. So even the likes of Alpine and Aston Martin, they don't probably even have that sort of money at the moment. So they're still trying to get up to that. So that's why Toto Wolf, obviously, and all of the implications as well in terms of the performance. And you've also got to understand that Toto Wolf and Christian Horner, whenever there's even the slightest opportunity to have a dig at the other team, to have a go and get a little punch, you know, just a little one towards Red Bull or Mercedes, either way, they're going to absolutely go for it. So Toto Wolf, you know, obviously he came out with the whole, we have people, you know, that have said that Red Bull have broken this and that. We've known it for months. And obviously this was during Singapore when we really didn't know too much about it. In terms of Christian Horner, he also has also totally right to come out and kind of defend his team. That is his job. Like, that's literally his job. So, and he's been very careful to say that it's the way he words it that's absolutely perfect. Christian Horner has never said that his team have broken the cost cap. He's always said that our submission was below the cost cap, and I'm sure it is when they dotted all of the I's and crossed all of the T's and added up the number at the bottom of the spreadsheet. I'm sure it was less than 145 million, but clearly the FIA, once they actually went through all of their checks, they weren't happy. Now, there was 3 teams, I think, that actually didn't get a certificate, and that was Williams, Aston Martin, and Red Bull. But Williams was actually something we knew for months, actually. They basically just submitted it late, and they actually sorted it with the FIA. They already paid a fine, and that was fine. Aston Martin also breached it, but it was a procedural breach. So it was something to do with documents. So maybe they submitted it late. Maybe some of the documents weren't quite correct, or some of their staff perhaps didn't fill them out correctly, which is Aston Martin's job. But yeah, that was, again, just a procedural breach. The Red Bull was actually the only financial breach, and it was a minor one, which basically means that it was less than 5%. But, even 5% at the top end, or, at the top end of 145 million, which is what, like 7 or something?
Yeah, 7 million.
7 million. It's still a huge amount of money. Now, obviously, that's the top end of the 5%. It could be as little as 200,000, 100,000. And the other teams have been very careful in coming out and saying, like Matteo Binotto, even 100,000 or 200,000, that's a front wing. Like, the difference that could have made in 2021, that maybe could have swung the championship. So, yeah, Red Bull are really coming under fire, but they're going to fight back. I mean, even in their statement, I think they kind of knew what was coming from the FIA, that they weren't going to get the certificate, but they are going to fight this tooth and nail because they believe that they have a case, that they haven't broke it. Now, the interesting thing is that and I do hope that this information does come out, we don't actually know how much Red Bull or how much the FIA think Red Bull have overspent over the cost cap. So that's really important information, because I feel like that would kind of dictate what their punishment should be. Because for anyone that thinks that Lewis Hamilton is going to be an 8-time world champion, probably not, I'm afraid. That is definitely not going to happen. They're not going to means that Red Bull scored, or even if they do, it won't be to take away Max Verstappen's championship, because I feel like that would almost, first of all, it all depends how much money. If they spend over 5%, like, that would be a massive one, and then we could talk about championship. But even though that is actually an option, even with a minor breach, I don't think they're going to take any points away from Max Verstappen. But potentially they could take away points from Red Bull, so they could drop down the Constructors' Championship from 2021. But it's very interesting what they're going to do. I think the more likely punishment is going to be potentially aero time taken away from wind tunnel, to kind of take a little bit of development away from them in 2023, and also take away some of their 2023 budget as well. I think those two are kind of the more likely ones, because it's a weird one. Obviously, the whole Abu Dhabi thing that is so emotionally charged in terms of the championship fight.
Yeah.
And I think even the FIA are going to want to kind of keep that Pandora's box closed. So it's better, if they will give any penalties to Red Bull, for them to be like either taking away some wind tunnel time, or taking away some of their money for 2023. So I think those two are probably the most likely two. Now, I've kind of answered C before I answered B, because I think B was in terms of what effect that, it has on Formula One. Well,
yeah, the FIA reputation and the transparency and the policies that they have, and the failure that FIA is showing keep on appearing. I mean, the cost cap, we've seen how they handled the tractor on the track. I mean, the marshals were there and the drivers were not informed. It could have been a disaster, not only for Pierre Gasly, but also for the marshals if they were hit by the F1 cars as well. So there were issues like that as well. But um, basically, FIA, don't you think that they are actually failing on applying properly rules and regulations and handling these things, and it's causing some sort of a black mark for the sport as well?
Yeah, the FIA has had a very shaky 12 months. I mean, even going back to forget actually Abu Dhabi, just the stewarding of some of the wheel-to-wheel, combat that we saw between Max and Lewis. There was
Yeah,
a lot of criticism, with that in the back end of 2021. Then we had Abu Dhabi, which, obviously is a whole different thing. Then even at the beginning of this season, you remove Michael Masi, but again, it wasn't just him. It was never just him that was the problem. Like, he was the one that, read the rules wrong, but there's clearly a fundamental problem that there is not enough either support, or there's not enough something in the FIA, especially the stewards room, to make the correct decisions at, swiftly at the right time, and for them to be consistent as well. Because even this season, we've seen them again come under fire. I mean, just the last race, Suzuka, absolutely crazy stuff to have, a recovery vehicle out on the track. And the fact that there was a person in front of that recovery vehicle was even more scary for me. So, and then obviously there's even more of a spotlight on them now with the whole cost cap thing, because we've only had 1 year of the cost cap and already they're being tested. Already they think that Red Bull have broken it, but it is their duty to try and almost kind of repair some of their reputation by doing the right thing and doing their due diligence and making sure that they, if they are right that Red Bull did breach it, then they need to punish Red Bull and make a kind of example out of them, because it's not just the championship, it's not just Formula One, but the entire ethos of the cost cap is that it wants to bring the sport, it wants to bring the more competitiveness into the sport by leveling the playing field between all of the teams. And if you allow the top teams to mess you about, if you allow the top teams to almost get away with it in a way, it sets a bad precedent from the very beginning. And again, we've only had 1 year of it. It's not as if we're 5 years down the line and then Red Bull have broke it, or even Mercedes have broke it. We've had less than a year of it. So it's very important, because I think it's a cause. It might restore a little bit of integrity into the FIA if they handle this correctly and give the right punishments that will deter other teams from doing anything like this in the future. Now, the one thing I don't know is, is there any malice in the way Red Bull did it? Because I think all teams, in a way, and I think Martin Brundle actually said this, they all played the game when it comes to the cost cap. I'm sure they all kind of looked into the details and tried to squeeze every last kind of, penny and pound out of the cost cap, and, just use little things there and there if they could. But clearly Red Bull kind of stepped over the line just a little bit where they shouldn't have done it. So all teams are doing it. It's just Red Bull that perhaps did it in the wrong place and got caught. So the FIA, I think, have a chance to kind of restore some, integrity, but it's just what the cost cap means. This needs to be handled right, because you can't allow teams to take advantage of it. Because if you give an easy out to some of these top teams, or even a lenient penalty, then some of them might be, listen, it might be worth actually overspending by $200,000 because the penalty might be worth it. So the penalty needs to almost set a precedent right from the beginning. So very, very interesting how they're going to handle it. And more than anything else, transparency. I know they don't want to kind of detail how much Red Bull overspent now, but I'm sure those details are going to come out, because we deserve to know how much they overspent and also why they overspent. Was it a mistake? Just did they read the rules wrong? This is stuff that the Formula One, the teams, and us should know. So I'm sure those details are going to come out, but it's very important how they handle this.
True. I agree. All right. So let's come back to your YouTube creatives. You've made some amazing content on YouTube, literally over 32 million views in less than 4 years. Some really incredible videos go by the titles of one, the greatest rookie season in F1 history. The second one was, is the Ferrari F 2012 the worst car ever to challenge? And there was another one called The Downfall of McLaren, and so much more. What videos are you the most proud of, and what videos did you find the hardest to research or creatively put together when looking back?
That's a really that's a great question. Just because there have been so many, and I try to make them better every single time, like every single year. I still look back at one video that kind of almost it's not that it launched my channel, but it kind of took me into a little bit of a different. It did really well, and I felt like quality wise, it was a big step up for me. And that was a video that you mentioned, the greatest rookie season of all time, which was a video about Lewis Hamilton, back in 2007. And I just felt
Mhm.
that it was very different in terms of quality from what I did before, and I felt like it kind of it's more similar to what I do now. And in terms of like what videos are the hardest to make, it's usually always the history ones that just take a long time. I mean, there has been some hilarious videos that I've done in terms of how long they took. I did a video about Jim Clark, or wanted to do a video about Jim Clark, who was a racing driver back in the 60s, and it was
Yeah.
actually a collaboration with Josh Revel. And I asked him to collaborate with me, and he sent over his audio for his portion of the video, but in like September of 2020. And that video, by the time, and I just he sent it over, and I completely forgot, because I was just doing different videos at the time, so I completely forgot about that video, and it actually came out, and if I finally got it done in, like, January of 2021 or, like, February, like, it came out
Bloody hell.
and it was hilarious because I had to message, Josh and say, "Yeah, do you remember that audio you sent me about 4 or 5 months ago? Yeah, yeah, the video's now coming out, mate. I've finally gotten around to it." So yeah, it's not always it's usually the history ones that, take the longest to do. I mean, not that that was very long, that was just me procrastinating for a long time and forgetting about it, but, yeah, it's usually the history ones, but also just they're also really cool because I love history, I love learning about history, and they seem to be the ones that do the best as well because I feel like people want to actively learn. There's new fans every single day, and they want to, learn about Formula 1 and kind of join me on that journey as well, so, yeah, I think the one that still stands out to me is that Lewis Hamilton one, though, that, greatest rookie season of all time. Not that it's the best video that I've ever made, it's just I felt like it was quite a big milestone.
But that what are there any other videos that you feel like once the final result is there and you uploaded it and you're like satisfied, but after a few days or few hours or something, you're like, okay, I should have done this in this manner. I should have done this in that manner. Something like that.
Oh my god, all the time, because it's mostly older videos as well when you look back and go, "Oh my god, that is so bad, like, that's just not I can't believe I actually did that." But it's in a weird way, it's just a growing kind of process because you get better as you make videos. So even if at the time, even the simple stuff like thumbnails, for example, I look back at some older thumbnails and just go, "Oh my god, that is so bad. I can't believe that that I actually did that." But you just kind of learn from it. To be fair, it's just it's almost a part of the journey. It's like when people
Yeah.
see photos of themselves when they were younger and they just can't look at themselves and feel like embarrassed. Similar to that, but it's all part of the journey.
Are there any videos that you were thinking of making and then, like the Jim Clark one that you totally forgot?
You know what? I think actually at the moment, because I have like a long list of I have like a Word document of videos of when I get ideas, I just put them in the Word document. And to be fair, I think I've actually managed to get around to most of them. There's still a video that I'm going to make eventually, which is my top 10 drivers of all time. I know I've definitely got that one on the back burner. I'm actually because I might be able to open up my little Word document here, like my Formula One ideas. So for sure, there's my top 10 kind of greatest drivers of all time. My list. I want to do like a proper like in-depth video about that. And also a video that I'm gonna do eventually I'll get around to it, is a video on, Adrian Newey, who's obviously, been a Red Bull designer for a long time, one of the probably
Yeah.
yeah, actually designer in Formula 1, and his career is just there's so many videos that you could make about him, so I just have I've got a few, like, titles I can see, like, "The Story of the Greatest Designer in F1 History," or "How Adrian Newey Won 10 F1 World Championships," so, yeah, those are some ideas that I've got on my video ideas, document, but, yeah, those 2 I think are they'll get made eventually, I'm sure.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's been around for a lot. Like when you actually look, he's been around for such a long time and also been successful for a long time. It's not just that he's just been in Formula One. He's been winning for ages, and obviously he just won with Max as well. He's going to win obviously the constructors. He's kind of took a step back as well, especially as I've talked to people that have actually worked at Red Bull. He has took a lot more of a step back in recent years, and he isn't as much hands on with the car, but he's still there. He's still a prominent figure. He's still a big part of Red Bull and why they have the success. So yeah, still cool to kind of see his legacy kind of continue.
All right. So I'm just like I said, I'm waiting for that video. So I hope that we would be able to see it sooner than later, possibly. Fingers crossed.
I'll try and do it
Um,
in the off season. You know,
Off season it is. That's going to be the best Christmas gift for us from you.
I've committed. That's it. I've got to do that because I've committed to it. I can't go back on what I've said.
Oh, here we are, guys. He just gave the word, so we should have him hold on for that word. All right. So the next question is for you. It's taxi, dinner, and avoid. So basically, you can choose any driver you want. You can have one driver as a taxi driver for you, and you can have one driver to have dinner. And there's one driver you bloody hell would love to avoid. So whom are you going to choose?
Wow. That's a good one. In terms of taxi, I feel like I'd want a driver that's really kind of easy to talk to, or someone that would. Do you know what I'm thinking? Oh, that's such a good one, actually. I'd probably go Jensen Button actually for my taxi driver. I feel like he's not only a smooth driver, but he seems like an interesting person to talk to. Like if you were like in the back of the taxi. So yeah, I'll go Jensen Button. In terms of the dinner, Lewis Hamilton. It's got to be Lewis. Like, I mean, the amount of conversations we could have, unbelievable. Definitely him. And what was the last one? The one to
The
avoid or
one
something?
you would love to avoid no matter what.
Oh my god, that's brilliant. I mean, it's got to be Mazepin, isn't it? It's just got to be. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll avoid him, both the driving and also his personality as well. A total of on all fronts, avoid.
Ooh, that's going to be cool. Mazepin. Actually, you have the unique answers because all the time, most of the received picked up by the current grade. So I never thought you actually would pick Jensen Button from those times. And then Mazepin, I was like, okay, maybe Latifi from the current grade.
Nah, to be fair, Latifi, like from everything I've heard, he's actually a really nice guy. Like he's super chilled, easy to talk to. But when it comes to avoid both driving and talking, Mazepin wins that one. It's the only thing he would win.
Yeah, totally. Unless there's a wall and Latifi's there.
Oh yeah, it's very true. Very true.
All right. So there's another question. You get to direct a Netflix documentary about rivalry in F1. Whom would you pick?
Wow. I mean, it's got to be a rivalry that I think is underrated because obviously all the good ones, obviously there's been a movie about Lauda and Hunt. There's been documentaries about Senna and Prost. So there's, I'm not going to say Max and Lewis. Because I feel like that's quite an obvious one. I'm sure there'll be a documentary about Max and Lewis, that rivalry in the future. But I am going to say,
I think I've had enough Max and Lewis rivalries because there are so many. There's too much drama on that rivalry on Twitter. Jesus, I want to avoid that.
I do. I'm not gonna lie. I do love the drama, but no. Do you know what answer I'm gonna go with? I'm gonna go with Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso. Because when I started
Ooh, that's
watching,
a good choice.
that was a big rivalry actually for quite a few years. I mean, Seb versus Fernando. It was kind of Lewis was also in the mix as well at the time, but McLaren were kind of hot and cold. Ferrari were also hot and cold. Like, Fernando wasn't really there as much in 2011 because the car was not good enough, and 2013 as well. But I remember 2012 was obviously the season again when I started watching, and just watching Seb versus Fernando, him at the Red Bull, kind of the way he dominated that team and dominated his teammate, had the entire team around him. It was just really awesome. And then seeing Fernando, drag that Ferrari, that really wasn't a championship winning car. I don't know, what he did kind of really, I was stunned looking at what his teammate was able to do compared to what he was doing. So, but it was just such a good rivalry, and it ended, even as a title decider. Brazil 2012 was such a good race. If anyone's not seen it then or wants to watch a race, thoroughly recommend. So I think Vettel versus Alonso, I think is an underrated one. I'd love to see a Netflix documentary on.
Yeah, actually, I think it is a good rivalry that people need to know about as well. Because, it's Fernando Alonso. What do you expect? And it's Sebastian Vettel, for God's sake. The guy just said that he's going to retire. It'll be picking up
time
very
for it as well.
easily.
Perfect
Yeah.
time.
All right. So, so this next question I'm going to ask. It's about picking up a driver and the hot lap circuit, but you can't pick a driver whom you picked earlier for the documentaries and to avoid and taxi and dinner. So basically, you can't pick the same driver over and over again. So you need to pick a new one. So
I love
whom
that.
would you pick? Yeah. So whom would you pick for a hot lap circuit? What is going? Which track and who's the driver?
I mean, it's got to be. I mean, I've got Max Verstappen still left on the table, so I've got. I
Yeah,
don't think
you
I don't think I
have.
chose Max on any of my answers, so I've got to pick up Max, because he's just quick and everything. And in terms of what circuit, I mean, first of all, it's got to be a long circuit, so it kind of lasts a long time. I mean, yeah, as much as Monaco is kind of a shorter circuit, so it wouldn't even be that long. I definitely would go Spa. I would go hot lap
Hmm.
Max Verstappen around Spa from Bouchon, and I mean it would just be incredible. Like going up by Rouge, with whatever car Max is driving, me in the passenger seat, I'd be buzzing, and it's a long lap as well. Like it is in a car, it would be a very long lap, so at least it would last quite long as well. So yeah, Max Verstappen around Spa is my choice.
I would give you 100 points on that.
Very
I
good.
mean,
Good answer.
okay.
I like that.
Even though there are controversy issues with bit around surrounding Max Verstappen, he is a good driver. We can't deny that part. And if you look at all these drivers, some of the drivers, well, they're good, they're talented, but you should have that drive and the passion. Like you would definitely go for that. Like no fear in yourself and all. So I see that aggression from Max, and without aggression you can't like actually drive an F1 car in most cases. So I think he's driving through that. He is a good driver. I mean, okay, apart from the drama, we need to appreciate his driving. So it's a good it's a good
I feel
choice.
like he just comes with the drama though. And thing is,
Yeah.
he seems like such a chilled person, but just everything around him, whether it was Lewis and Mercedes last year or Ferrari this year, I don't think like it just seems to come with him. It's a strange one, but yeah, he just does what he does, isn't he? I mean, at the moment, I think he's he's definitely the best driver on the grid at the moment. He's kind of separated himself just a little bit. Well, for sure, he separated himself from Charles because I feel like Charles has just made a few mistakes. And
Yeah.
Lewis has also had a patchy kind of season as well, although I still think that it's Lewis and Max up there, but with the championship, especially since Spa, just these last like run of races, I feel like Max has just put a little bit of daylight between him and everyone else. He's one of one at the moment, and yeah, thoroughly deserves obviously the championship. But it's just amazing watching him drive. I mean, there were some weekends where, I mean, honestly, it felt like whatever race, whatever track, whatever position he started from first to 20th, maybe even from the pit lane, he was going to win it regardless. And that's his brilliance. That's a scary thought, and that's obviously a great job by Red Bull as well. But yeah, it was interesting those few races.
Yeah, actually, this time it was really good. I mean, I loved the rivalry that they have last year. It was very entertaining until Marcy and the Stewart screwed it up the last moment, because last race was like neck to neck. It was like superiorly cool, and we were on toes as well on that race. It was like the best season ever that I have witnessed with when these guys were like driving together. And afterwards, this season was like super boring, to be honest. If I'm being very honest, this season was like super boring. And Max, there weren't any competition, to be honest. For him with the car, he was in front. There was no one, so he already won the championship. So but last year it was not like that. It was neck to neck. So every season should be like that. Excited, and until the last moment you won't be knowing a single thing, and even the fans will be like curious, and that excitement, you should have that. And unfortunately this year we won't be having it, but I'm hoping that we would be having that next year, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
I think we got really lucky in 2021. And it's one of those, obviously we had Lewis dominate for quite a few seasons, although some of them were a lot closer, even than this year. But we got really lucky because 2021 is a season that does not come around often.
Yeah.
2021 is one of those one in every 10 or 15 years kind of seasons, and it's weird. Obviously, we just want more. We just want another 2021. Maybe less of the drama, although I do love the drama. I'm not gonna lie. So,
I mean, the drama is
but
all
yeah,
right,
and to be fair, it hasn't
unless FIA is going to screw it up.
exactly. But it's been more Ferrari this year. I mean, again, like it wasn't even it's not Max's fault that he's dominating. With what he has, it's more
Yeah.
that Ferrari weren't quite able to. They seemed to have the car at the beginning of the season, but they weren't able to really put Max under pressure. Even if the car now, is nowhere near as good as the Red Bull over the course of a full race, I mean, they could have put him under a hell of a lot more pressure, and they just weren't able to. So it's more, Ferrari that haven't been able to give us the exciting fight than it is Max.
Have you seen that video that I can't remember who created it though. So basically what they shows is George is going in front, Hamilton is going in front, Max, Checo, everyone is going in front, and Charles is going in front, but the strategies are carrying him behind.
I think I saw that meme. It was like I don't know. I didn't see the video of it, but I remember there was like a meme of I think it was like it was like a chariot or something, and like what was it? Max is being pulled along by Red Bull, Lewis is being pulled along by Mercedes, while Charles is like being pushed back by Ferrari or something like that. And it was just like, oh my god, that is so true.
There's actually a video of that. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, send me that. Honestly, that's hilarious. I love it.
Okay,
it's scary how true it is, though.
Oh my gosh, you should see this. There's this TikTok account I follow on. I can't actually remember the name, but these guys are making some nasty animated videos of every single possible race that they can find out. And one of these videos actually were from that as well. I'll send you that link and the video. You will be like, you will be laughing.
Yeah, you've got to. Yeah, you got to send it to me.
All right. So another spice piece of news that's arrived on not so typical Fabrizio Romano is what appears to be confirmation of deal being struck for Pierre Gasly to move from AlphaTauri to Alpine. Is there any truth in rumors? Okay, oh yeah, I actually want to know about this as well. Is there any truth in rumors that Ocon and Gasly don't get along and the family has some issues and all? And B, what effect do you think this will have on a team like Alpine that have made improvements at the front of the midfield? And the last one, C, in your estimations, where does this now level Daniel Ricciardo and Mick Schumacher?
Oh, again, another one of these multi-layered questions. This is brilliant. Obviously, again, this question was back when I don't think it was confirmed because it got confirmed as we were going into the Japanese Grand Prix weekend. So
yeah.
Obviously, now we know that Pierre Gasly is going to Alpine, and obviously Nick De Vries is going to AlphaTauri, which is just hilarious because Nick De Vries has been all over the place. He's tested for Williams, he's tested for Mercedes, then he tested for Aston Martin, then he actually did a race for Williams. Now he's gone to AlphaTauri. So yeah, Nick De Vries has been he's been around, but finally looking forward to seeing him make his debut. In terms of the whole beef between Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon is quite interesting because I thought that Pierre Gasly would almost try to kind of like die it down a little bit, like play it down, like it's being a bit overplayed by the media and the fans. But he actually talked about it in his F1 interview when he got announced, that he was going to be an Alpine driver alongside Ocon for 2023, which I just found really interesting. Like he's playing into it in terms of like, there definitely was some kind of beef between the two of them when they were younger. Now, we don't actually know what it is. I've seen so many rumors on Twitter, but yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can trust Twitter, so we don't know what it is, but
yeah, F1 Twitter is another world.
yeah. I don't know how much I can say in terms of what I read on Twitter, but yeah, we'll leave that for a bit. But I think what's going to be interesting is who's going to be the number one of that team, because Esteban Ocon, he's going to want to lead that team, and Pierre Gasly going into a brand new team, finally leaving Red Bull, he's also going to want to be the number one of that team. And with all of their history, if they do get close on track, there is no way that is just going to stay like a nice and friendly environment. I think they are going to butt heads at some point because they're two drivers you're going to want to lead that team, and there is just that history as well that we know. Both drivers have talked about it, so I honestly can't wait. It's going to be absolute box office. It's going to be so exciting watching those two. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. For Alpine, I feel like they honestly got the best kind of option out of the ones they had, because I mean, they dropped the bag massively. So it's kind of like, even though Pierre Gasly is quite good, is quite a good option for them for next year, it's kind of one step forward after taking two steps back, because losing Alonso, losing Piastri, that was absolutely one of the biggest fumbles I've ever seen in Formula One. So to kind of save it. You know, Pierre Gasly, I don't think he's on Alonso's level. And obviously, you know, it's kind of difficult to know where Oscar Piastri would have been at Alpine, but they've done a good job to kind of save it and get a decent driver in there, but it doesn't hide the fact that they really did fumble, you know, two great drivers in Piastri and Alonso. So how you know, Ocon and Gasly are going to work is going to be very interesting, because who is going to be in charge of that team? Who's going to beat who? They're both quite similar drivers in terms of their statistics, in terms of, I think, how good they are. So they're a really interesting pairing, and it's difficult to call who's going to finish ahead of the other, but that's just going to kind of add to the intrigue. And when it comes to the Daniel Ricciardo element of it, you know, where does that leave him? It's it looks like he's gonna have to take a year out. He did say himself in Japan that it looks like, you know, that because Alpine is gone, it doesn't look like he's gonna go to a Williams or a Haas. So he himself has said that he's gonna take a year out in 2023 and potentially look to get back on for 2024. So, you know, if that's what he needs, then that's what he needs. I mean, but it's very easy in Formula One to get left behind. So even though he might want to come back in 2024 again, there's new and younger drivers every single year. So it's a big risk if he feels like the best thing for him is not to go to a lower team, but take a year out, you know, altogether.
Yeah, and now Haas has announced that they're going to be having a media conference, and there are rumors about who it might be about the replacement. Maybe they might say that it's Mick Schumacher who's going to be for another year or so. What would you say? What are you thinking? What do you think about that conference that they're going to have on the 20th of October?
I mean, first of all, I love that they announced it, because that's just like free content for F1 Twitter and everyone to just speculate in terms of what it's going to be. I guarantee, you know what? The most F1 thing is that if that conference literally is just like absolutely meaningless, and it's just like announcement of someone joining the team, but not like a driver, but like a piece of you know, a personnel or a piece of staff or something like that. But yeah, that'd be the most F1 thing ever. But in terms of do you know what, the Haas thing is so strange, because I think Mick Schumacher has definitely made gains over the course of the season. The Haas is not as competitive as it was at the beginning of the year. So Mick Schumacher is kind of stuck in a similar situation as Zhou Guanyu, who has made big improvements, you know, to get closer to Valtteri. But because the Alfa Romeo has dropped off so much at the beginning of the season, his points tally just doesn't show it. But he has actually made loads of progress. And I think Mick has done exactly the same up against K-Mag. But even though as a driver, it looks like the two options that Haas are going to choose between is going to be either Mick Schumacher or Nico Hülkenberg, which I think is a very interesting one. I actually think that Mick Schumacher is probably just the better bet, but there seems to be some kind of relationship breakdown between Gunther Steiner and Mick Schumacher, because Mick, I think, has done enough just to kind of warrant, you know, another year at the team. But it seems like the team, and there's, again, something has broken down, like maybe the way that people around Mick are, you know, what they're saying, how Mick is acting in the team, and how he reacted, because Gunther Steiner gave him a proper kind of like, he gave him a big kind of slap up the backside, apparently in Baku, saying that he needs to stop crashing and that the team can't afford him, because if he keeps doing it, then he is going to be kicked out of the team. So, and I'm not sure how well Mick and the team around Mick actually reacted to that kind of, you know, negative reinforcement, if that's, you know, if you want to call it like that. So is there a bit of a relationship breakdown? Is it kind of gone too far to the point that it doesn't matter what Mick is going to do? You know, he's not going to be re-signed by Haas. I don't know. As much as I would like also to see Nico Hülkenberg back in Formula One, I actually think that they should just stick to Mick Schumacher. I think like Nico Hülkenberg is not a massively better driver or prospect in the next couple of years over Mick Schumacher, and where Mick is right now in his development to force Mick out the sport. So to me, I would go with Mick, but if they do go with Nico, I think it will be purely because there has been some kind of problem between Haas, Gunther Steiner, Mick Schumacher, maybe some other people internally as well. And, you know, if you can't work with the driver, if there's just something that's not quite right, then at the same time, I would actually understand if they wanted to drop Mick and go with Nico, who's a much more experienced and mellow character. You're not gonna have as many problems, or, you know, with Nico Hülkenberg, because he's a very kind of chilled guy, so I don't think there'll be too many problems with him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do. But yeah, I really do hope that they do announce their driver lineup during that press conference. But again, knowing them and knowing Formula One, it's probably going to be about something so boring, and they've basically just tricked everyone.
All right. So speaking of Nico Hülkenberg, whom do you think is the most underrated driver in F1 history, and who would you say is the worst driver in F1 history?
The one who's the worst driver is very, very difficult. Because
I mean, we
I
do
mean
have Nikita Mazepin.
yeah, there's also been a lot of drivers. We're talking like over 730 drivers in the course of Formula One's history. So it's difficult to answer who's the worst. In terms of who's been the worst since I've watched. Do you know what? Both in terms of the equipment that they had, because there's been drivers again like during 2014, 2015, in some of the back market teams like HRT, Caterham. HRT was back in 2012, and teams like Marussia, like there were drivers who only did like a couple of races, but they had bad equipment. They never really got the proper chance in good cars. So it's difficult to judge them just because they were at the back of the field team. But
Yeah.
I probably would go with Mazepin just because, and that's all joking aside, to be honest. He didn't, I don't think he worked well with the team. I don't think he did enough in the car. He didn't present himself well to the team. The way he started, even the way he started his career, we all know about the incident and everything, but he didn't kind of endear himself well to the team. You could see in Drive to Survive, like there was just so much awkwardness within the team. They didn't feel comfortable with him. And I honestly think, obviously, despite what's happened in the world, I mean, I wouldn't say, it's a good. The only good thing about what's been happening is that Mazepin is out of the sport, and they kind of found a reason to force him out. That's the only good thing that I can say from that. But because it's made the morale of the team a lot better with Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen. But yeah, it's probably been Mazepin, even worse than Latifi, although they're quite close. But at least Latifi, actually, to be fair, he, apart from crashing a few times, I don't think he was as accident prone in the early years, especially, when he made his debut as Mazepin. So I'd probably go Mazepin as the worst one still in terms of the equipment that he had, because he wasn't driving like a HRT or a Marussia or something. There's been a lot of worse drivers in worse cars, but he had, up against Mick Schumacher, he didn't do a good enough job. And then the most underrated in my time, I mean, it's got to be Robert Kubica. Massively great driver before he had a big accident, a rally accident in 2011, which basically forced him out of Formula One, ended his career early. He did make one return to, with Williams in 2019, but he was not, not the same driver. And I'd go, and he was world championship material. He was absolutely a driver who, if you saw him race in 2008 and 2010, this guy was special. He was up there with the likes at the time. He could compete with the likes of Fernando, Seb, and Lewis, and that speaks to the caliber of driver that he was then and potentially could have become. So yeah, definitely Kubica.
All right. So the next question. This is going to be the elephant in the room. So let's talk about Max Verstappen. In terms of this year's challenge, we did speak about this then and there in bits and pieces, but in terms of this year's championship year, the challenge, where do you rate this championship year for Max? Do the allegations of him not having a consistently competitive teammate, having an inconsistent challenge from his championship rivals, the allegations of the illegal flexi flows, and now the breach of cost cap regulations taint the impact of him winning this championship?
Wow, I mean, that's a loaded question right there. I mean, well, first of all, on the flexi floors, like, that got sorted out after Spa, and the Red Bull became even quicker. So, in terms of the flexi floors, that had no effect on Red Bull. If anything, they developed and got even quicker. So, let's talk about Ferrari and flexi floors, because they kind of really fell off after that. I don't think, I mean, first of all, obviously, in terms of the whole weaker teammate and stuff, has he got a weaker teammate, or is he just that good? It depends which way you look. Maybe Max Verstappen is so good right now that it doesn't matter who you put next to him, he's going to demolish anyone. So I don't think it takes too much away, because I think it makes Red Bull look worse. The whole cost cap thing makes Red Bull look worse more than anything, because I mean, Max Verstappen has always been a great driver. Like, even ever since he was 17, 18 years old, the talent was always there. It's not as if somehow all of a sudden, during this controversial period with Red Bull, all of a sudden now he's, become good because of like the cost cap or the flexi floors, or because he has a great car. He's always been great. He was just so, so young at the time, so raw, and it took that time to mature and kind of get to the driver. And I think 2019 was the first year where he really was good enough to kind of fight for the world championship. But obviously he had to wait until 2021 to get the car. So all of these controversies, I think it makes Red Bull look, worse than anything else. But with Max, it doesn't matter what car you give him. Like, he's always been a great driver. The way he pushed Ricciardo out of the team, because Ricciardo felt that the team is gathering pace around Max. There was this momentum around Max, even in 2018. So, and what he's done to teammates as well. I mean, it's just, clearly the car is also a little bit, you know, the way that Adrian Newey and the team over there have designed the car is maybe a little bit more centered towards Max, but that's only because that's where they're finding performance. They're building the fastest car that they can, and Max, more than any other driver, is able to get the most out of it. So that just speaks to his driving, you know, ability. And again, yes, there have been moments where maybe Checo has had to move aside, but at the same time, he's, you know, Checo had that little run at the beginning of the season when Max was also getting used to the car, but ever since maybe, you know, race 5 or race 6, Max has been firmly ahead. So I never want to take too much away from the driver, because even when Lewis was winning, you know, we give all of that credit to Lewis, and a lot of people, you know, said it was just the car and stuff like that. But a driver can become almost underrated. And I've seen it so many times. Again, you know, Lewis being a prime example of people trying to put him down in terms of winning all those championships, because he always had the best car and, you know, always was up against Valtteri Bottas. It was easy to beat. But, you know, Lewis was special there when he was winning. Max is special now when he's winning, and he deserves his time. But again, it's more in terms of all of these like little controversies and the whole cost cap thing. That's more on Red Bull. That doesn't take away from the greatness of Max.
But don't you think that it's actually not good for Max as well? I mean, he deserves to have, okay, the first title he had, it's already tainted, and it has all over issues with the whole rules and regulations. But this time, he literally had a good run, and this was a very deserving championship for him, with no doubt. But at Suzuka, they from FIA again, they actually said that they're going to give only half points after the race, because it didn't have the full race. And then they decided that, okay, we are going to do full marks and then make Max the champion. And then from there, people start blaming, and, you know, the drama started again. And don't you think that it's unfair for Max to have all these issues, because he actually deserves a proper title for his genuine skills and the talent and all the winnings that he's been gathering the whole year for this year?
Yeah, I mean, even like, do you know what the thing is? Even just quickly going back to 2021, is that Max didn't do anything wrong. Like, the title was decided by the FIA and Michael Masi. It's not as if Max crashed Lewis off and then won the title illegally or something, you know, in that way. He didn't do anything wrong. He was just a beneficiary of the rules being, you know, read wrong. And over the course of the season, both of them deserve the title. And it's just how, you know, it was unfair in the way that the rules were read and the way Max won it. But it doesn't mean that he didn't like deserve it and he wasn't good enough to be a world champion or something like that. But again, you know, people will argue about 2021, you know, until the end of eternity, and maybe, you know, rightly so. It was just such an amazing season. But this year, what I feel sorry is the way he won it, and the way that he didn't get that moment of coming across the line, knowing he's a world champion, hearing that team radio, and, you know, Crofty, you know, his commentary as well, that Max is the you know, the world champion. And it was kind of funny the way he won it. But and obviously there was that hilarious like moment where they kind of, you know, realized that the rule, you know, how many points that they were going to give out full points. And so Max found out through the interview, which he didn't get that moment, which I thought was a shame, but he played it off so well. I mean, it's just what Max does. Like, you know, he took it in his stride. He took it as a joke. And then there was that whole like room with that chair where he was just like, you know, sitting as the world champion, which I thought was just hilarious. And he was like, you know, I'm feeling lonely. And then went back to see Charles and Checo. But yeah, it was just a bit of a shame that Max didn't get that moment. But as far as this season, I mean, that drive deserved a world championship. I mean, 26 seconds ahead of his teammate and ahead of the guy in second place in 28 laps. I mean, that was a champion's drive, just even to seal it. So even if the points, you know, weren't given out straight away, and if it was a little bit confusing, he wrapped it up in style in terms of the performance that he put forward. And ultimately, he's done the job that he needs to do this season. It's not up to him for Ferrari to get their act together in the same way like it wasn't Lewis Hamilton's job for Red Bull to get their act together in 2019, 2020, you know, and then eventually they did get it with Max. But yeah, he's done exactly what he needs to do. He's not in charge of Mercedes or Ferrari, and ultimately this championship, undoubtedly, he's the best driver with the best team. I know the whole cost cap thing now is kind of like muddied the waters even more, which is just classic Formula One. But from the driving aspect, no one can tell me that he hasn't been the best driver this season. So yeah, it's Max Verstappen just can't win normal titles. That's basically it. But he definitely is a championship caliber driver, and it is right to see him with 2 titles in a way. Maybe again, forget about what happened last year, but just in terms of he is an all-time great driver. There's no doubt about it, and I'm sure he's going to go on to win many more titles.
All right. So If you could go back to any year of your choice and be an exclusive content creator with a team and driver in the championship winning year, for an example, like Michael Schumacher 2004 at Ferrari, something like that, which championship year and team would you pick?
Wow. A part of me does want to say maybe either like Mercedes or Red Bull back for 2021 because that would have been amazing. But we've talked enough about 2021, so I'm going to exclude that season. Although, I'm sure being part of that team at the time was
I
just
agree with you, right? Because 2021 was the best season that I have witnessed.
yeah, it's nuts. That's do you know what? I'm gonna go like way back in the day. I'm gonna go. I want to be part of McLaren back in like 1988. I know that content creation wasn't really a big thing in the late
Yeah.
80s before the internet, but if it
Well, you
was,
can be the
let's just
first.
exactly if F1 Twitter was around that time and YouTube and everything, that was to have Senna and Prost in the same like team, and then the way the championship in the next couple of years, actually, the way it ended in 1989 with like, Prost kind of colliding with Senna. And then the next year, when they were in different teams, then Senna crashing into Prost. And in both occasions, the other one wins the title. Like they seal the title. I mean, could you imagine being part of those teams? Oh my God. And then imagine making like videos and like being, Ferrari. I think there's someone at Ferrari that breaks down the race on their social media after every single race. Could you imagine like breaking down, that race if you were part of the McLaren team on your social media when both your drivers have just crashed into each other, like, and then one of them has won the title? I mean, that'd just be hilarious. So yeah, I'm gonna go.
What would you name that video?
Oh my God, not the way we wanted to win it, but we win it either way. So there you go. That's what would have.
Oh, that's a good one.
But yeah, I think that would just be hilarious. That was so toxic, and I'll make videos of that team.
All right, so we know you have an affinity with Ferrari, okay? So let's say they give Binotto the El Sacco and promote you to be the team principal of the Scuderia outfit. Whom from either the Twitter or YouTube world would you pick as your A, the technical director, and B, head of social media, and C, driver performance coach?
Wow. Oh my. First of all, Binotto El Sacco. I love that. That's brilliant. Wow. Okay. Can you name me the three roles again? The three roles.
Okay. The first one, technical director.
Technical director out of the F1 Twitter or content creation space. I mean, I need someone who knows a little bit about aero. I'm gonna go with a guy. I think you've had him. I think on the podcast, Blake, who used to.
Ooh, yeah.
To be fair, out of all of the YouTubers, he's the guy that probably knows more that what he's talking about than anyone else, and especially on F1 Twitter, he knows a lot more than people. So I'm gonna go him as my technical director. Ex Red Bull. He knows he's not actually kind of an an aerodynamicist because he's more of an engineer, but I'm gonna go with him.
Okay, so
social media.
he is social media head.
Social media. I'm actually going to go and give it to Jess McFadden, who's a good friend of mine, who's actually she's actually in charge of social media and basically in charge of content for motorsport. So yeah, got to get Jess in there as well. Bit of representation as well, which we love to see. So yeah, gonna give Jess my head of content creation at my team, and then the last one was performance, right?
Yeah, performance coach.
Performance coach, someone who's gonna big up the driver, just kind of calm him down. Do you know what? I might actually go and potentially be maybe even on the team radio. I'm going to go with Tomo for that one. I think Tomo could be quite a calming voice, just putting the drivers in the mood, kind of bigging them up when they need to be, but also kind of calming them down when things get stressy. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Tomo.
Okay. All right. So before I wrap this up, the whole episode,
no doubt.
What?
That's my championship winning team right there. No doubt. That'll bring Ferrari back to the top.
Yay, Ferrari. Come on, man. Give this guy the job. Okay. Let's El Sacco that Binotto. Oh my God. If someone is listening to this, they will come behind me.
Hopefully it's not Binotto listening.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed on that as well. All right. Before I wrap this whole episode, and I'm so who's asking all these questions and not Denzel or F1 Black. So the last question I'm going to ask you is actually about the advices that you would like to give for the young content creators. What advice would you give to young content creators aspiring to make insightful and engaging you've created over the years? Are there any projects or content you can share with us that you're excited to release soon? Well, we did talk about that. We did speak about it earlier a bit. And we know you were taking part in a YouTuber karting championship. So, how was this experience for you as well? Let's share.
I'm actually super quick. I suppose on the karting. I mean, I again, like I said, when I was younger, it was just be a Formula One driver. That's what it's all about. But so even though I didn't quite make it yet, I have kind of got into karting and just been able to race a little bit more because racing is just amazing. I mean, it's fun talking about F1, but racing yourself is just a whole other level. And I love racing cars. I love making videos. So I thought I would put it together. And me and a friend of mine who's obviously a YouTuber as well, JB, who has a channel called Cars with JB, we just thought we'd make some videos about karting. So, just kind of combine our two hobbies of making videos and racing. So that's kind of how that came about. And it was super fun. I am going to do we've got some fun stuff on the way in terms of actually setting up some subscriber karting days as well. So just inviting a bunch of subscribers to race with us and just have a lot of fun. So that's something that's definitely going to be coming up hopefully in 2023, I think, when the weather gets a little bit better. So yeah, that's kind of how the karting stuff came about. But yeah, in terms of advice, I think in terms of advice for content creators, I mean, you've got to really enjoy what you're doing. And also, if you are, it's going to be up and down. You've got to realize that it's not always going to be great. You've got to kind of ride the wave of, the ups and downs and kind of go through it. And also use content creators that have a bigger following and look at their videos. And you've really got to try and if you really want to make great videos, you've got to look at other people that are successful and look at how they've did it to up your content, make it even better than what they're doing, because ultimately, people are going to judge whether if they want to come back and watch your videos or not. So it's all about the quality of your content, what you're doing, and also being unique, but just enjoying what you're doing, because there's a lot of people that, like Formula One and want to make videos, but they find it a lot more difficult than it sounds very, very quickly. So if you don't, you try it for a little bit. If you don't enjoy it, then don't worry about it too much and just don't do it. Some people, want to do, some people can do this, some people can't, and it's totally fine. So I think that would be like my biggest advice in terms of just really make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, because when it gets difficult, you're going to really struggle if you're not doing it for the right reasons and just forcing yourself to do it, or, something like that. So I think that would be probably my biggest advice.
Were there any moments that you felt like giving up and you felt like, oh, this is not okay, this is not going to work out, or moments like that? And how did you push through those moments? I mean, I definitely have those moments. I still get those moments sometimes. And I know for a fact that I've had some period as well. So how did you actually push through those negative vibes and the moments that you felt low and you felt like, this is it, I don't want to go further with this, and the weak points that you had?
That's actually a really good question. And I mean, I've definitely had those moments. I mean, even now that it's my full-time job, it's very different when it's your job. You've got to kind of look at it more as a business than anything else, which is a very, very different. But to be honest, throughout all those moments, even when I was, just doing it for fun, it was almost like it was more like my hobby and my release at the time. And, to kind of make sure that I'm not stressed out. That's why I covered Formula One. That's why I talked about it and then did YouTube. So, but there were moments obviously that it was quite difficult, but it was more my passion that just kept me driving and kept me pushing forward through, doing more and more, because every single time I wanted to put it down, there was another race, there was another talking point, another big controversy, another video to make. And that's what kind of motivated me. I'm so passionate about Formula One that there is always something to talk about. And even when it gets difficult, even when you have a few, bad days, you just, I don't know, you kind of get up and you let your passion drive you forward. And I feel like that's the biggest thing. When you're really passionate about something, it makes it easier to cope with the more difficult days. So yeah, and also collaborating as well and talking to other people about Formula One and having fun together. I think that's really important as well, because you're not just in your own bubble, and you can talk about Formula One and have fun, with your friends that also watch Formula One on YouTube and on the internet. So yeah, it's just a mixture of all of those things. But yeah, I think passion is the biggest one, because if you're not passionate about something, then it is going to be difficult to pull through those difficult moments.
Have you ever regretted any decision that you have taken in your life?
Yeah, of course, there's loads. I mean, everyone, there's no way that anyone's had like this, perfect life that they've never regretted anything. But it's like this cliche, isn't it? Everything's a learning experience. Everything you did wrong or did right got you to where you are now, and ultimately makes you the person that you are now. So, of course, there's loads of regrets, whether it's like within YouTube or outside YouTube, that I'm sure everyone has. So, but it's all just a learning experience. You got to make sure the biggest mistake is not learning from your mistakes. So, I think that's yeah, that's kind of the big one.
Ooh, that's a good quote. The biggest mistake is not learning from the mistake. I'm gonna put that on my stories on IG today. That's
I need to put that.
actually
Yeah,
good
that's
one.
brilliant.
Yeah.
That was just off the top of my head as well, but yeah.
That's actually a good advice. The biggest mistake is not learning from the mistakes. I mean, that is the biggest mistake. You make mistakes and you learn from that. And if you're not learning from it, then that's the biggest mistake that you can ever make. So thank you for that. um, where can we find you on the socials? We know that you have the YouTube and you're on Twitter. So let our fellow listeners know that where we can find you, follow you, and share their ideas with you, talk to you, or some sort of a way to connect with you, and check your work as well, your socials.
Well, luckily for me, it's just obviously my YouTube is just ALDAS, ALDAS, and everything else is ALDAS 001. So yeah, literally on everywhere. Instagram, even TikTok, unbelievably. And also it's Twitter as well. F1 Twitter. It's always chaos over there.
ALDAS 001. Is there a particular reason for you to name it as 001?
Yeah, because my name was taken on Instagram. I can't have just Aldas, so I had to come up with something different just to put it on. I was fuming, and also my name is also taken on Twitter as well, which is really annoying. So I had to add something to it. So I thought I'll just make all of my socials 001. So yeah.
Oh, I had that trouble. I can't remember which social I had that issue with. So apparently my name has taken as well. I'm like, oh my gosh, who the hell has Georgina with a J? Is there another person like that? And so I had to go through a lot of trouble to find my Twitter name and the IG. So I had to put underscores and dots and all. And sometimes I had to remove one letter and two letters and see, oh my god, that's
I
a
know
mess.
the struggle.
It's a huge struggle. So thank you so much for joining us today, Aldous. And I'm so sorry because it's me who has to host the whole episode, and it's not F1 Black or Denzel, but they were like so keen and they were like superiorly waiting to actually do an episode with you, and I ended up being the lucky person. So
Well, it was really enjoyable. Again, thank you for kind of letting me come back a week late, because yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun.
hell, I'll let you off the hook if you promise to come back again for another episode to do with the boys.
Absolutely, we got to get the whole gang together. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. They would be like thrilled to have you here again because they were like super excited. I think Denzel actually got caught up with the work, and Black was the first person who was going to come over and do the episode today with you, and he suddenly got caught up with work as well. He just finished work and he just texted me, "Oh shit, I got caught up at work." So I'm so sorry about
We've
that.
all been there. We've all been there. It's all good. It's been a lot of fun though.
I hope that I didn't disappoint you and the listeners. So if there's some sort of a spiciness missing, it's not anything else. It's just that AMG Dance is not here. So there's that. Um, thank you so much for joining again, Aldous, and I'm really looking forward to the day that we can actually have you here with the boys. So this is Georgie's tripping through me. I don't know how to close this, man. I'm like running all over the places, thinking like, okay, how should I just close this episode? Because basically the boys are the ones who are doing it, and I've been off with the whole game, and I'm like thinking, okay, how should I close it? You know what? For a change, I will let you close this episode.
Wow, throwing it over to me. I love it. The Stripping Dipping podcast. Right. This episode, me and Georgie absolutely smashed it. Absolutely loved it. And we'll see you in the next one.